why do I play in the first place? Why do I want to build this business? Why is it meaningful for me? The intrinsic drivers. So it's the really unique balance. So yeah, I think you teased that out actually quite nice in what you were alluding to.
But welcome to the Next Level Income Show, where it's our goal to take your income, your investments, and your life to the next level. I'm your host, Chris Larson. If you haven't yet, get a copy of our book for free at our website, nextlevelincome.com. That's www.nextlevelincome.com. Just click on the book link, and I'll even send you a copy if you put your address in. On today's show, we have Dr. Cassidy Preston. Cassidy is a mental performance coach for professional athletes and high performers like surgeons, hedge fund managers, and CEOs. The challenges he faced as an elite hockey player created a passion for finding a better way to work on the mental game. He has dedicated his life to helping his clients use practical and personalized strategies that deliver repeatable and reliable results. After completing his PhD, Cassidy founded CEP Mindset and built a team of coaches that utilize his approach and system. The team has quickly become one of the largest mental performance coaching firms in the world that has coached tens of thousands of athletes and high performers to improve their mindset and achieve consistent elite performance. Today, we're going to talk about Cassidy's new book, Mindset First, what you will learn in here. It's a fun conversation that you're not going to want to miss if you are seeking the highest performance in your life. Dr. Preston, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited. We talk about a lot of financial matters on this show. And one of my favorite series here in the past few years has been the series Billions. I don't know if you've seen it or not. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
pretty much me.
That's you, right?
But I'm the male version of that. Of
exactly. The lady. Yeah, my favorite character on that show is Wendy, and she is a performance coach at this hedge fund. So, I was reading about you. I saw your new book, Mindset First, which I got. I'm going to be listening to the audio version with my boys, like we were talking about before the show. And I was like, I gotta have Cassidy Preston on here. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about your background with the audience before we jump in here.
Yeah, no, you bring up the Wendy reference because especially if I do like a corporate speech or I'm I'm pretty much Wendy. It's like it's not the stuff behind the scenes, but right, but the stuff in the office. That's how I operate and coach people in one-on-one settings. And I got into that from a sporting background. My background, I'm from Canada. Grew up playing hockey on frozen lakes. Like it's the Canadian dream to play in the NHL. I fell pretty short of that in days. I did play a little bit of pro hockey, but my mental game, like I really got in my own head a lot, lots of adversity. So I kind of like my own self-preservation. I'm like, there's got to be another, like, how can we work on our mindset, mentally prepare, so we can be at our best day in and day out. And that's what led me to go to school, read all these books, try and crack the code and find this new way. And then so that's what's led me to now the work that I get to do now, taking all these principles and strategies, helping people think differently about their mindset, their mental prep, about success and failure, so that it can be more level-headed, even keep grounded and light, and therefore be at their best day in, day out. So that's the short version of it is from my own kind of voids of my own, skills, created this value and unique take, and that's where it's got me to now. But we can dive into more nitty gritty stuff as we go.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because Gavin McHale has been on the show talking about a money mindset, and he has a hockey background. He's from Canada, and one of our mutual friends, Justin Rothling-Schofer, was just on the show. He just dropped his new book and was talking about health. And I think it's interesting, right? We talk a lot about physical health in this country, but it all starts in the mind. And when it comes to performance, business performance, sports performance, we've seen all these different stories that are out there, right? And I was listening to a political commentator of all things, and she's a African American woman, and she was talking to another African American woman, and she was basically saying to her, listen, if you want to feel oppressed, feel oppressed. If you want to be successful, change your mindset and do that. And I was watching this and I thought, wow, it's all in your mind. This was just here in the past day. So I guess let's start from a sports perspective because we both have sporting backgrounds. I first read about like mental sports performance, and I'll never forget. I was 18. It was the summer in between college, and I forget who gave me the book or how I found out about it. But I was racing. I was a Category 1 cyclist, and I was reading about how to visualize
Yeah.
performance and doing
Yeah.
that. So maybe we can talk about the mind body connection, since I feel like we talk so much about the body and health and these sorts of things, but there's a
Yeah.
lot of mental aspects that we kind of leave behind in this country, from a
Yeah.
health perspective, but from a performance perspective, where does the mind come in with the body?
Oh, 100%. Great question. And there's a couple different ways we could unpack that. But the
Yeah.
first of which is like clearly your mind is inside the body, right? So one of the like the favorite lines from
Good point. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like it's literally in there. And so and you talk about like, well, how can I get a more calm mind and less anxious? Well, if you calm your body down, it will calm your mind down. And but
Yes.
on the flip side, you learn to calm down and work with your mind, helps your body. They're connected. There is no
Yeah.
separating them. They're in there.
Yeah.
And so, treating both sides or working on both sides really matters. And then a good way that I like to often explain the work that I'm doing is a lot of mindset is actually about taking action. It's just about putting in the work, getting on the bike, going, reading the articles, putting in your effort, like showing up on time, how like doing the work. You just show up and you do the work, you learn, adapt, do the work. That builds momentum and creates confidence and builds your mindset. The hard part and what I work on is what I'll say then is like 10 to 20% of your mindset is actually about the tangled thoughts and the feelings and the fears. And there's like the
Mm.
emotions get a bit tangled up. And therefore, when those things get tense and there's not alignment, well, now makes it harder to take the action. And if you're not taking the action, then you get more tangled and then you'll take less action and then more tangled. And so athletes and high performers in any world
Yeah.
can get into this little vortex where it gets a little bit of a
Yeah.
trap, or they hit a ceiling because there's just too much tension or tangled in their thoughts, feelings, and actions. So then when I come in, it's like, okay, well, let me do this 10 to 20% and get clarity and help you clear some blocks or look at things differently so to free you up so you can go back and out into the real world, take care of your health and take action, do the
Yeah.
work, make the calls and show up and learn and read and apply yourself. And so again, it is helpful to separate them and understand the differences. And again, often it gets so overlooked because a lot of the world is living in the outer world. It's easy to focus and see the outer world, live in the outer
Yeah.
world. Like the outer world matters, but so does the inner world.
Yeah.
And that 6 inches between your ears, your mindset, how you approach things really matters. And the way that I like to really then encourage it, in the way the highest performers, the people that show up day in, day out, they take an inside out approach, or what I'll often call a mindset first, which is like, let's focus on the inside first, get grounded, get light. Now let's go tackle the outer world. Versus the outside in approach is, well, what's going on around me? And letting that
Mm.
external world then dictate how I feel
Right.
and how my
Right.
inner world is. So now you're becoming dependent on external factors.
Yeah.
It's not a consistent game plan. That's going to lead to yo-yo and emotional ups and downs. If your mindset's not in a steady place, well, now your performance and your results, if you're an athlete or a high
Hmm.
performer in any area, you're going to
Absolutely.
be less consistent. And so from a really understanding, the mindset and why it's important is like, yeah, maybe it's not the most important thing, but like without it, things can really spiral, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I
um,
love that. Yeah.
and so you need both. It's not like, oh, which one's more important? Well, yeah, if I just have inside and take care of my inside and never go and take action, yeah, that doesn't work either. Like,
It's like the guy in the sauna. You're like, I
yeah,
see this guy when I'm, go to
yeah,
like the hot springs in Bozeman,
yeah,
Montana.
yeah.
There's always the same dude there. And
Mhm.
I don't think the dude works out, but he always sits in the sauna, and that's important. But it's like,
Yeah,
wait, there's this other piece. So
yeah,
you said a lot of things there. I
yeah.
want to walk through this kind of sequentially in a couple ways. But I've heard like, do you see the snake and do you feel afraid, or do you see
Mm,
the snake and your body reacts instinctively, and then your
mm,
mind feels afraid because of
yeah,
that? So
yeah,
I think I don't even do we even know the answer to that question, Cassie? I mean, we know they're intertwined, but do
yeah.
we really know like how like what comes first in certain circumstances? Because I know we can create a feeling in our body, but we can also create a stillness in our mind through our body, right?
Yeah. So that's a really cool question. And so one of the common things when we think inside out and our mindset,
Hmm.
what I'm usually helping people do and navigate is, do I want to live in a place of fear and
Right.
threat aversion, which generally doesn't work well. And like if you live outside in, it's like, oh, happened today, or oh, that could happen. And I'm worried, like, and therefore it's causing fear, worry, anxiety, ups and
Right.
downs, and emotional that state,
Right.
which, generally from a high performance standpoint is not helpful, right? It
Right.
is
Yeah.
actually helpful if you go into a dark alleyway, person's got a gun, it seems kind of, it's scary. No, screw it, run. Like fear
Yeah.
response, helpful, keeps you alive.
Yeah.
So, and then flip that with the response or the mindset we want generally in a high performance setting is courage, trust, be aware and
Hmm.
be deliberate and do what I feel is better, and that confidence and that swagger and
Right.
resilient and focus. And there's that light and grounded feeling,
Yes.
which is not that fear response. And
Right.
so we all have both, but we can't remove this. We can't get rid of it. So when we see the snake or the
Mhm.
danger, there is a natural response to be like, okay, how risky is this? Let's
Mhm.
assess the risk. Now, if your emotions and emotionally charged things, like think of someone that, like, I'm going to say deathly afraid of snakes, like they
Yeah.
overreact. Let's just
Right.
take an extreme person.
Yeah.
So this is a cool, fun
Yeah,
narrative for
let's
me.
say
Yeah.
as a child
Yeah.
I fell into
Yeah.
a pit of snakes and got freaked
Yeah.
out, and
Yeah.
now I'm just super,
Yeah.
super freaked out for whatever reason.
So me, and then versus like someone's who's, let's say, a snake whisperer or deals with dangerous animals more often. It's definitely not me, just to be clear. But let's just say there's a person that has like a
Steve
different.
Irwin, remember that guy who used
Yeah.
to grab
Yeah.
like
Exactly.
two of the
Yeah.
seventh deadliest snakes
Yeah.
in the world, one in each hand? He's like, check this
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. So what will happen? If you're deathly afraid and you have this, I would call it an emotional charge and reaction.
Okay.
So both of us walk by and all of a sudden, oh, a snake is out, and it's kind of a dangerous looking snake. Well, you would go, oh my gosh, freak out, panic. And
Right.
so we both have the body, like, oh, that's dangerous. And yours is like, it's so, and then you're like, now you're having actually an unhelpful response. And it's
Right.
probably more likely to make want to attack you potentially,
Yeah.
etc. Versus
Yeah.
if you don't have this emotional charge, you're more centered around it, but you still be like, oh, that's dangerous. You
Right.
respect the danger, if
Right.
that makes sense, but you
Yeah.
can stay more calm and composed. So when we're mentally preparing people, which it's often not to deal with snakes, just to be clear, we're dealing with like the market's going up or down. Am I going to make the sale? Am I going to
Yeah.
score, not score, like get the result that I want, which are, but often if they make it feel like it's a dangerous snake, well, now that's really inciting the fear response and an
Right.
emotionally charged one often.
Yeah.
So we want to collapse those charges and get grounded.
Yeah, so
But
let's
when you think of,
my apologies for interrupting. So
no worries.
um moving from, kind of where this originated in our body, right, which is
Yeah.
or in our evolution or however we want to define that. It's here and it's helpful, but it also is hurtful. So
Mhm.
we're trying to make a business decision or we're trying
Mhm.
to make a sale. I spent almost 20 years in sales.
Yeah.
And if I'm thinking, man, I'm going to go see Dr. Preston and he's
Mhm.
not going to, always going to ask me all these questions. I might not answer him properly. Maybe he
Yeah.
doesn't like me. Am I wearing the right shirt?
Mhm.
I'm None of those things are really helpful. It's all anxiety that's coming
Yeah.
about. How do you take somebody that's going into like a high pressure negotiation where they have to we're in the middle of a big business decision with
Mhm.
a property that we have. So we got,
Yeah.
a lot of people are trying to make a decision on this. What are some tools that business people, that executives, that high performers that are outside of the sports world can utilize to help
Yeah.
prepare them for that?
I give two big ones.
Okay.
On the first one I'll go is the first question is, okay, well, we know what the outcome is. We want to get a deal, but who do you want to
Mhm.
be? Is like, I would
Mm.
prioritize, who do you
Who
want
do
to
you
be
want to
in the
be?
negotiation, right? How do you
I
want to
like
show
that.
up in the negotiation? That's mindset first. That's inside out, right? There's this, John DeMartini has this be, do, and have model, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And most people are like, if you're just going to, well, what do I want to have? I want to get this deal. This deal will be so good. It's so important. We got to get the deal. Need to, have, shoulds, anxiety, like just
Yeah.
inherently probably not going to show up in the right way. You're going
Right.
to be more
Right.
needy. You're going to be less patient and adaptable, and present, and
Hmm.
certain and prepared. And so it's like, no, who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? So that would be strategy one is,
Yeah.
the priorities from the results to your mental state for who you're being. And then when you're doing that, you need to detach from the results. So this is
Detach
like,
from the results. Now
yeah,
I'm gotten like writing some great quotes down here for me
yeah,
here.
right. So detaching from the results, which is always easier said than done, but very doable and not necessarily that hard either. Right.
Right.
But again, some people that are used to just holding on and need to, have to, should, they're going
Mm-hmm.
to have a hard time making that switch. So
Right.
therefore, the second thing to help make sure you don't fall into the trap of like, yeah, I want to focus on being this and get the results, and then you're still holding on to the result. Then you're not truly focusing on who you're being and just being present and how you want to go through the negotiation, is
Mm-hmm.
the word acceptance. And so
Acceptance.
that's going to help us detach. It's going to help us embrace the result, the external thing, right? Let me go back to the snake example to highlight acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't accept that there could be snakes around and, they could try to attack you, they're probably not going to hurt you or whatever. But like, if you can't accept it, then don't go through the forest. Does that make sense? Don't
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
I
Can't
do
stand the
this.
heat. Stay out of the
Yeah.
kitchen.
Stay out of the kitchen. Exactly. So I
Yeah.
do this with people all the time. Like, you can't accept that a deal might not go through, then don't go into negotiations, or just give them whatever they want. Like, so
Right.
um, but it's accepting the range of results helps you detach. So now you can focus on who do I want to be and how do I want to negotiate? What are my, non-negotiables? Like, be clear on your
Right.
approach versus so obsessed about the result and feeling you need to, oh, it's going to be so great if it happens to be so awful, doesn't. And like, that's not using acceptance.
Which you can't control
Yeah. What you
ultimately.
can't control. Right.
That's
Yeah. So
so,
that'd be the 1-2 punch. That's, there's some other things in there, but those would be the main, you know.
yeah, I love it. So just to recap that, as you go into a situation like this, remind yourself, who do you want to be? Like, what is
Mhm.
the type of person that you want to be? How do you want to show up? And then detach from the results and I really like that, what you said. Look at the range of outcomes that are there. And,
Mhm.
like you said, if you don't want, if you're not okay getting bit by a snake, maybe don't go on a hike ever. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, most of us are not going to be that. Or you could say, hey, if I get bit by a snake, this is what we would do. I
Yeah.
coach my son's mountain bike team. And
Yeah.
one of the things that we do is wilderness aid training. So
Yeah.
you go out and I've been on I've cut my leg down to the bone before, and had different situations. And
Yeah.
it's funny, right? When you hurt yourself, a lot of times it's not that big of a deal. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I spent a
Yeah.
lot of time in surgeries too, so maybe I'm just okay with it. But it's
Mhm.
like, okay, if a child does this or a young adult does this, how are you going to treat them? Or if a fellow coach
Mhm.
injures themselves, you go through those processes and do
Yeah.
that. And we kind of accept the range of outcomes that are out
Yeah.
there. So I really like that. Um, I want to back up a little bit, Cassidy. So another book which is kind of a similar name. It's one of my favorites. I
Mhm.
really like Grit by Michelle Duckworth.
Yeah.
But the other book that I always recommend with it, and I think it's because I read them back to back and I can't remember what comes from what. But the
Mhm.
other one is Mindset by Carol Dweck.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'll never forget. And this is where I forget where it's from, if it's from Grit or Mindset. And I think it's from Grit. But the author she says, children that ultimately become the most successful in their fields, they're not the ones necessarily with the most talent.
Mhm.
They're the
Mhm.
ones that have the mindset of becoming what they are setting out to be: a professional
Mhm.
musician, a professional
Yeah.
hockey player,
Yeah.
a doctor, those sorts of things. It's that mindset that occurs. So I know we've talked about kind of mindset in the moment, but when it comes to kind of this, I'll call it kind of this underlying mindset, this baseline
Yeah.
of how you see yourself and ultimately how you show up on a regular basis. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah. 100%. I think, I don't actually know which one that would be in, but I might be
I'm
Grit
gonna,
actually. So
I think it is
yeah,
Grit.
I
Yeah.
think it is
I think
Grit
it is
because
Grit. Yeah.
I know the mindset book quite well,
Yeah.
growth mindset and Carol Dweck's work. But
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, growth
like
versus sorry, real
yeah,
quick, it's
fixed,
growth versus
fixed
fixed, right?
mindset.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so, which will also then tie into this because,
Yeah.
think of an athlete or somebody and you're
Hmm.
in position, one, and you want to get to the next level.
Yeah.
Well, you're not there yet. So
Yeah.
but
Right.
it takes a new set of skills and then maybe a new mindset or
Yeah.
more work in those things. So if you don't see yourself being in like the next level, then you won't do the actions to get there
Yes.
either. Right. So it's
Right.
like a fixed mindset start to
Yeah.
label. Like one of is really common in youth sports when a young athlete performs really well at a young age,
Hmm.
that can actually be a very limiting factor because then they're like, they get very afraid to fail because they haven't failed
Yeah.
a lot, get praised so
Yeah.
much for their
Hmm.
success and not praised on their mindset and their effort and their grit
Yeah.
and those things. So
I
so
saw
to the
that when I
point,
was racing.
yeah,
I was
yeah,
14 years old and I started
yeah,
racing. And by the time I was 15, I was a state champion. So I was like decent.
yeah, yeah,
I was so jealous of these kids, Dr. Preston,
yeah,
that had started when they
yeah,
were 12 or 13 and they're winning
yeah,
national championships. I'm like winning a state
yeah,
championships. Like, well, what a big, not a
yeah,
big deal.
yeah,
Most of them had quit by the time
yeah,
they
yeah,
became adult cyclists. So I
yeah,
saw this and it was,
mm,
whether they were afraid to fail or it just sucked, right? Because you
yeah,
like weren't really getting better. I've seen this directly. Are you a high income business owner or professional earning two, 300,000 or even more a year, but still feel like you're living paycheck to paycheck? Are you comfortable working until you're 65 or 70 to retire? Or do you want to achieve financial independence and live life on your own terms? You could join myself and Matt Four and learn how we both became financially independent in our early 30s. We will teach you how to make, keep, and grow your money, teaching you strategies to maximize your earnings, keep your income that you've earned through tax strategy and legal structures, and ultimately teach you how to grow it by determining your personal investing strategy, as well as teach you how to analyze investments so you can grow your passive income to the point to live life on your own terms. Our coaching clients reliably do this in 7 years or less. To learn more, check out our coaching program at nextlevelincome.com/coaching. That's nextlevelincome.com/coaching.
yeah. And there's, and think of like the highest level, it's like it's a grind to get like you've
Such
got
a
to like
grind. Yeah.
you got to love it and there's got to be a level of hustle. There's no like
Yeah.
magic cure that just gets someone to the top level. Like you got to
Yeah.
put in the work and then have the right mindset along the way. Like
Hmm.
because if you've got to put in the work, but then you're fearful, that's where we come in a lot of times.
Yeah.
People fall apart because they
Yeah.
know, but then they're not doing what they know, not focusing on who they're being, and there's fear and those things.
Yeah.
So, but to your point around like it becomes people that can rise, they're intentional. Like, who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? They have that forethought
Yeah.
and intentionality or priority of who am I being? And like, so there's a
Right.
clear like vision on the process for the mental state versus
Yeah.
like, well, what do I want to achieve? Everybody has the same goals for like, I want to make more money or I want like external goals. I want to get to the
Yeah.
next level. I want to
Yeah.
win. Oh no, I
Yeah.
showed up today. I'd like to come in sixth place. What?
Right.
Like it's like no, like
I
everybody's
will
trying.
say there are people that are like, oh, I just want to do my best. And I'm like,
Yeah,
could you get a little more specific? Like,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
but
yeah,
get
yeah,
something in your
yeah,
brain, like get something in
yeah,
your
yeah.
brain.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but the goal and intent is to rank as high as possible, right? So to
Yeah.
speak. There's
You
the
would
guy, I
think.
forget
Yeah.
his name on Netflix. He's like, somebody's got to be the 70th best golfer in the world. It's quite funny approach. And it's
That
just
is
like
really funny. Yeah.
it's
Well,
quite
and
funny on that
I
show.
was my both my boys are into like really into lacrosse. They're both
Yeah,
talented.
yeah,
I saw this one day. So this is a cute little anecdote. I have a friend who
yeah,
played for Johns Hopkins, which is I think they're ranked number two
yeah,
as we record this in the country. So they're very good. And he played for Hopkins. So he sent as a gift because he had some leftover stuff to my boys, a pair of his old gloves, his pro gloves and his Hopkins gloves. And his Hopkins
yeah,
glove have his number on them. You can't buy them. It's really neat. My younger
yeah,
son really wanted them. My older son said, sure, sure, you can have them. And I was like, oh, wow,
yeah,
that's pretty cool of you to give, he kind of gave up first right of refusal to him. And
yeah,
I put my hand on my son's shoulder as my younger son walked away. And I was like, Ethan, that was really, really admirable of you. And he
yeah,
looked at me straight in the eyes, no, no, not joking around, just matter of fact, and said, Dad, it's okay. When I play D1 lacrosse, I'll have my own gloves.
mm,
And
yeah,
I'll never forget that moment because it
yeah,
reminded me of what we were
yeah,
just talking about, which is having that, that
yeah,
vision of what it is and, how
yeah,
that kind of carries through. So I think, to kind of put an underscore on that, if it's
yeah,
business, if it's sports,
yeah,
whatever it may be, you have to be clear on where you want to go. With our coaching clients, we get
yeah,
really clear on that 3-year vision. And what
yeah,
I found is our coaching
yeah,
clients that do that work and get
yeah,
clear on that, they're
Yeah.
immensely more successful.
Oh yeah. No, big time. And the clarity, my guess is when someone really gets clarity on like what is it going to look like, is clarity like who are we being in 3 years? And also then clarity like who am I going to be now to
Yeah.
keep working towards that. And
Yeah.
sports is a great example, but so is in business, where the trap becomes we focus too much on just the result. I want that scholarship. I want to play at that level. And then I
Mm,
need to and I have
yeah.
to. And I call it falling for the allure of results. We get stuck into the outside in the results first approach. It's like day to day.
Uh,
I mean, if your son's showing up day to day, okay, I got to score today. I got to play well. I got to, get all this external
yeah.
validation. And that's his
Yeah.
priority day in, day out.
Right.
That will hurt his mindset. That makes sense,
Good
which then
point.
will actually
Yep.
hurt his performance.
Yep.
So it's this balance and a bit of a trap where it's like, yeah, we all have external goals and
Yeah.
you want to have clarity and you want to believe in them and be committed to them. But
Yep.
then can you also really focus on who you're being and what does it look like to be up there? And what's like, you don't have to map out the whole journey, but you want to map out like, who am I going to be today?
Yeah.
Why do I play in the first place? Why do I want to build this business? Why is it meaningful
Yeah.
for me? The intrinsic drivers. So
Yeah.
it's the, really unique balance. So yeah, I think you teased that out actually quite nice in what you were
Yeah.
alluding to.
But
Yeah.
that's so good. The why, right? The power of why,
Yeah.
as Simon Sinek says.
Yeah.
And I think yeah, that's massive. The other thing that popped into my head as we were talking is I think it's a Jocko Willink quote. He talks about discipline equals freedom. And
Mm.
I come back to this a lot when I'm in a tough spot. And what I mean is I had a friend, really close friend die. He actually helped me start my business here. He passed away just over a year ago and I was in a real funk. It was really hard for me to get over it. And I mean, I got up at 5, it was like 7 o'clock. I was still in bed. I was like drinking too much, cause I was just kind of like,
Yeah.
wasn't going to the gym because people would say, "Hey, how are you doing?" I didn't want to tell them. So I
Yeah.
kind of had this slow slide. And it was only for a couple of weeks, but
Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell are you doing, Chris?
Yeah.
So I remembered that Jocko Willink quote, and I was like,
Yeah.
discipline equals freedom. And what I did was I just got back to the basics,
Yeah.
getting out of bed at 5 o'clock, going
Mhm.
to the gym, eating the right food, cutting out the alcohol, getting
Yeah.
back to, meditation and those things. And that changed, all those things changed my body, changed my mind,
Yeah.
and with some other stuff helped me get back on track.
Yeah.
What are when someone is going through a tough period, we've
Yeah.
talked about the importance of having the mindset and the vision and the why figured out. You've talked about
Yeah.
showing up and how to view the outcomes. But
Yeah.
what do you suggest to somebody that really is in a funk, whether it's business or personal, that's having these issues? What are some
Yeah.
strategies that they can use to get out of that?
Yeah. And that's a great question and always an interesting one because everyone's a little bit different. And so
Fair.
it's not like cure all like saying or strategy
Yeah.
that I can easily express to like, oh, great. Everyone's challenges are not like we can overcome
Can you
them.
just snap and like anybody that's
Yeah.
listening will immediately come
Yeah.
out of, yeah, that'd be terrific.
Bam, that's
Yeah.
it. Woo. But with that said, there's some fundamental ways of thinking and operating that then people can reflect on and engage in. One of which is, and any adversity or challenge or failure,
Yeah.
there's always a silver lining, which
Okay.
means
Yeah.
it can give us perspective that allow us to actually move forward in a new way. Or another way of saying that, and this comes from John DeMartini as well,
Yeah.
are
Great guy, by the way.
voids
Yeah.
our voids drive our values, right? So
Our
what like
voids drive our
drive our
values.
values. So
Hmm.
it's like, so when you
Hmm.
go through a tough time, it can create this value and of wanting like to have an impact or drive you forward. And
Yeah.
so there's always a silver lining is the premise.
Yeah.
And so, but it's aware and open and looking
Yeah.
for it. Or how can I grow from this versus
Yeah.
I'm the victim. Look at me. How much does this
Yeah.
suck? And you don't own the
Yeah.
story. We
Yeah.
call it one of the strategies like, okay, well, let's own your story in terms of you're
Hmm.
not just the things that you do or achieve or think or feel. You're more than that. You're more than just the character or the author. And you get to narrate. The facts are the facts. They've happened.
Yeah.
But are you narrating, oh, this is not going well? It's like, how's the next page going to go? Or is it, all right, yeah, this has been some
Yeah.
tough times, but look how I'm growing and learning and moving
Yeah.
forward, and it's fueling me. And
Yeah.
so, and then I might be the hero, the victim, and then there's this new blank page just tomorrow. How am I going to write it? What story, how am I going to show up tomorrow? Who do I want
Yeah.
to be? And so, but none of that happens if you don't own it. And none of
Yeah.
that happens if you don't have the ability to get the perspective. So if
Yeah.
we embrace the hard things and the challenges in life, they can serve as a powerful source of grit and fuel.
Yeah.
Right. And
I love
so
that.
like, and there's some good research on where if you ask people that are really gritty, like, really resilient athletes, business people, it's like, hey,
Yeah.
where'd you get your grit from?
Yeah.
They'll go back and point to it in their life when they
Hmm.
struggled. It's
Yeah.
not
Oh
from
yeah.
somewhere else. It's
No.
from going through hard things. You
Yeah.
can't replace that.
100%.
Like, and
Yeah.
there's no escaping challenges in life. So like,
Yeah.
and everyone's challenges look a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
But it's equivalent of comparing one person's challenges to another.
Yeah.
What challenge are you going through? And when you're going through that challenge, how can you see the silver lining, own
Yeah.
it, from it, use it to move you forward, use it
Yeah.
to find what are your values. Your values can come out of that void or that challenge in and of itself. You'd be like, oh, this really matters to me. Or it's like, you know what? This really sucks and it doesn't matter to me. I'm going into this. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's like, which is also gives you value. Does that make sense? It's like, hey,
Absolutely.
I actually don't value
100%.
this. It's
Yeah.
like, actually,
Yeah.
this pain, this is just a nuisance. This is what is actually interesting. This is what sparks
Yeah.
joy for me or meaning. And so, and then maybe like a secondary quick point, as I alluded to the word, a big issue just in terms of our general society is that people are trying to be happy instead of having a meaningful life. And if you try to chase happiness, you're gonna like, you know what I mean? You're gonna
Yeah.
like, no,
Yeah.
don't chase happiness, chase a meaningful life. Cause like, and
Yes.
going through meaningful things create
Yeah.
challenges. So, cause then people have
That's
like this
that's very
adverse thing to
powerful.
challenges when they're focusing on too much
Yeah.
on happiness. So,
Yeah, that's very powerful because it can be very short-lived. It can be very hollow even.
yeah,
My a lot of listeners know my father passed away when I was 5, and a lot of my
yeah,
values as a father and the time that I
yeah,
devote to my boys is because I didn't get to have that experience, and
yeah,
I don't know when this time for us will
yeah,
end. God willing,
yeah,
it's a long
yeah,
time.
yeah,
I had a guy that worked for me. He's a Green Beret, fantastic
yeah,
guy, one of my favorite um, reps that I ever worked with. But uh, we were finishing up a particularly tough day, and I kind of
yeah,
put my hand on his back, and I was like, "Hey, man, like that was a tough day, you know." But I was like, "Hey, you really held up well," and kind of complimented him. And I'll never forget. He looked at me and he goes, "Chris, at least I didn't get shot at today." So again, those adverse things that do
yeah,
occur really
yeah,
push forward.
yeah,
As we wrap up here, Cassie, I'd love for you to share a little bit about kind of who you wrote the book for, where listeners can get your book and what they're going to learn in the book
yeah.
as well.
No, appreciate it. Well, the book is definitely written more for athletes than people, but we've had lots of business people read it already, and
Yeah,
it applies to high performers in all rounds. But instead of trying to
yeah,
write it for everyone, I made it more targeted towards athletes and specifically hockey players. There's it's a lot of hockey examples, but again, got soccer players, but yeah, everyone's reading
yeah.
it. So one of the most famous mental games is actually the inner game of tennis. And it's like, but like hockey players are
Mm,
reading the inner game of tennis by Timothy Galloway. So it's like, my background in hockey and stuff, we picked a hockey more
yeah,
focus.
I'll have to pick that
So,
up as
but it's
well. Inner
anybody
game of
trying to,
tennis.
yeah, the inner game of tennis by Timothy
Thank you.
Galloway. It was
Yeah,
written in 1985, still like constantly read. It was a good, it really contrasts like some of the inner voices and things and ways of
yeah,
them and overthinking. So it's a good foundational book. But so it's anybody that's a high performer, wants to play with more confidence, wants to break from the weight of results, perform
yeah,
when it matters most. And anybody that wants, um, it's definitely, there's good theory and principles in it, but it's very practical. It's meant to be a concise, practical guide. Here's how you can work on your mental game. Here's a new way to break free from this, play with confidence, and use it. And so it pretty much takes what I do with people one-on-one and condenses it into a nice digestible format. There's like a workbook PDF you can download on my site and stuff too. So that's who the book's for. Find it on Amazon, best way to go get it. And just look up Mindset first. And I forget what your last question was, but or what they can expect.
No, you're right. Yeah, yeah. Who you wrote it for and where to get the book and what they're going to learn. That was perfect. And we're going to have we got your website, drcassidypreston.com here in the show notes, but you also have your coaching website, CEP Mindset. And who do you work with that business, Cassidy?
Yeah, so that's mine. It's like a coaching firm of mental performance coaches. So we have like about 20 coaches now, because it's just people want especially when they want to they got a pain or they want to work through it, they got a block. One-on-one is the best way. Speaking, that's what people want. So, and often creating the business side of it. So we've just pulled together and eventually started to create a team. And so that's at cepmindset.com. So if people are interested in one-on-one coaching, that's a great place to check out the ranges of coaches we have. And then, they reach out that way and get booked in we often do free intros for people so they can meet and greet the coach first before an actual program.
I love it. If you're listening, you want to learn more, check out drcassidypreston.com. Check him out on his website. Also, cepmindset.com. We'll have that in the show notes. And check out his book, Mindset First. I got a copy. I'm going to be sharing the audio version with my boys on some of our car trips here this summer as we come up. Dr. Preston, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your knowledge, wisdom, and your new book with our audience.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Chris.
My pleasure. Hey, Chris here again. I hope you found this episode valuable. Now, I have one more thing to gift you. We have a page for my coaching clients where you can get a free copy of my book, as well as much more from previous guests on the show. Just check out nextlevelincome.com/coaching to get a free copy of my book, audiobook, and much more. I'll send you a copy of my book and cover all the shipping costs as a thank you for listening to the podcast. Also, please like, share, and take just 90 seconds to give us a rating on Apple Podcasts.